Hi, everybody. What a great session, right? Let's give it up for Andy and Edward so far. We're not done yet. First, before I introduce the panel, which I have a great panel, I'm excited to get started in our conversation, is a little public service announcement. There is no free lunch. This lunch took effort, took some contributions by others, and being in this great facility, the logistics, the effort to do this required contributions. And many of you here are our members, but there are many new people here, and we really want to encourage everyone to become a member of this coalition. HNTB has been a member of the coalition since day one. We saw the need for a very focused advocacy lobbying group dedicated to high-speed rail. We're all members of various professional associations, be it APTA, REMA, AASHTO, whatever. We can go through the alphabetic list, but they are not able to have a laser focus on what our interests are, which is what we're doing today. HNTB has benefited from the efforts and the labor and the leadership from Andy and Ezra, both nationally in terms of where we are with the federal grant programs that we heard from Amit a few minutes ago, from the administrator a few minutes ago, and also in California specifically. Many of us are involved in California. The coalition really did an amazing effort to, as you may know, the history of what was happening in California, that it needed a focused effort to push it through our legislature to get the funding that we needed to continue. So I just want to encourage every one of you here today that either are members, pay your dues, or two, if you're not a member, please pay your dues. If you have any questions about what it means to be a member, the value of being a member, you can reach out to me at any time at this conference or offline at some point. Okay, and Matt, let's get on with this amazing panel we have today. At first, my great pleasure of introducing Andy Byford. Well, I love the idea that we can refer to him. The New York Times referred to him as Train Daddy. So aren't we lucky? So he's an executive VP of high-speed rail for Amtrak, an extensive career with Toronto Transit, New York MTA, and Transport for London. Andy?
Great stuff. Well, look, thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone. It's nice to be in a room where everyone agrees on the same thing, right? We all love high-speed rail. We all are very excited about the potential for high-speed rail. And certainly, when I was considering, once I finished at TfL, I was considering which option I wanted to adopt in coming back to the US. Amtrak was the compelling choice. Because it's such an American icon. It truly is an iconic institution. It's America's railroad, but also because we have this golden opportunity, which is why we're all here today. And do you have the clicker? It seems to have disappeared. Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's get into it. So I think it is genuinely a new era for transit. So I just want to take you through a few slides today and just make that point. So first of all, some quick facts. You'll know Amtrak, America's railroad. And we are in an expansive mode. That's what drew me to the organization. It's great to come somewhere where for once we do have a golden opportunity. We've got the money. There's this absolute impetus, which we've heard about this morning, about going to the next level and truly making high speed and other improvements a reality for this great nation. And certainly we're very focused on that, which is why you can see the stats there of the as-is, but we're rebuilding, we're bouncing back after the impact of COVID. And this gives you just a snapshot of the year in review. So we're rebuilding our ridership. What really encourages us as an organization is it's not just getting back the people who were already riding on Amtrak, our loyal customers, but you can see there 7 million first-time riders. That's really encouraging that we're building a new ridership base. We want to do more of that. So you can see we're adding service, we're restoring service. We're about to, later this year, we'll restore service to the Gulf Coast and expanding more other services that we've already got. And for that, we need more people. So we're hiring a lot of people right now and advancing major capital projects using the IIJA, which we heard about earlier on. Our top priorities are those on the screen, rebuilding that business again, rebuilding after the ravages of COVID and getting back to not only where we were, but pushing on in this brave new era for railroading in the US, modernizing our assets, making it even more attractive for our riders so that we can attract more riders. And also, this is the critical point. You heard it from the administrator. We can't do all this on our own. We've got to lean on and rely on and work together with states and other partners such as yourselves in order to make this thing a reality. And it is an exciting time because, again, as we heard from the administrator earlier, we have this unprecedented amount of funding available, an unprecedented amount. And look at the stats, 66 billion is more than all the 51, it says on the slide now, 52 years of Amtrak combined. So that's a huge opportunity that Congress, this administration have given us. And it doesn't mean to say we have all that cash in the bank. We don't suddenly have this war chest upon which we can draw straight away for all the suppliers in the room. But it does mean we've got 22 billion to push on in improving and upgrading our existing asset base. And the delta, 44 billion, is drawing down via FRA grants, discretionary grant programs, and that's where the role of partners such as the states come in. But as the administrator said, and I quote, "It's our moment." And these are exciting times. So I just want to run a quick video, first of all, if you might run the video. Let's see how we see it from the Amtrak perspective.
For more than a century, people in America move by rail. They travel faster here than anywhere in the world. 140,000 miles of track, connecting cities from coast to coast. But somewhere along the way, our transportation policies got us stuck in traffic. Not anymore. Thanks to Congress and the administration, a once-in-a-generation investment in rail is beginning, and Amtrak is ready. We're rolling up our sleeves to get to work to transform our transportation system, adding service, putting new routes on the map with state and federal partners to connect thriving cities and towns, building stronger and more resilient infrastructure, introducing a new state-of-the-art sustainable fleet made in America, modernizing our stations and making them accessible to all, connecting us with the people we love and the communities that bring us together. We're creating a greener transportation network, and we're growing the economy while we're at it, powered by thousands of new, good jobs. The stakes are great. The potential, limited only by our collective will to act, to deliver on the promise we make to future generations that we will leave this place better than we found it. The new era for rail has begun. Join us.
So two things stood out for me from that video. They were number one, where at the start it said, well, we used to have the fastest trains in the world. Well, we should be aiming to get back to that, right? The second thing, and again, I quote, which was where my colleague there said, the potential is limited only to our collective will to act. And that to me is the key point. Do we want this or don't we? Because if we do want it, then we all have to pull together and really go for it. So it's time to get to work. And that's exactly what we're doing under the leadership of our CEO, Stephen Gardner. And I talked earlier about modernizing our assets and serving more people, again, to hit those climate and mobility needs. So what does that mean? Well, in terms of modernizing the assets, basically looking at all of our existing assets and modernizing them to bring them truly up to date to be in the 21st century and to comply with ADA. So wonderful facilities such as the Moynihan Train Hall, which I had the pleasure of using for the first time only recently. That's the way of the future, state-of-the-art, decent, modern infrastructure. New trains, fleets such as the soon-to-be deployed Aeros, which in addition to being dual mode, will have the advantage. You don't have to have this time-consuming switch between electric and diesel traction at DC. And infrastructure, often the sort of unsexy stuff, the stuff you don't really read about, which is upgrading your switches, your signals, your bridges, your tunnels, the things that make a journey reliable. You've got to get all that kind of stuff right. And of course, we're pushing, I think, at an open door because rail is inherently a very efficient way to move people in a mass transit context. There is really no better way on a highly trafficked corridor to move lots of people in a good amount of time. Plus, we already have the advantage that we're pushing at an open door in terms of the environmental front because it is the greenest, I would argue, the greenest way to travel, and we intend to make it greener still. So what's our vision? Well, this is a very visionary map. This is something with which many of you in the room will be familiar. This is the Connects Us map. And I do stress this is visionary. This is the kind of network that we should be aspiring to. So what you see on there are the dark lines, which are the existing national network, but the lighter blue lines, the turquoise lines, which are things that really ought to be taken forward, such as cities like Phoenix and Louisville and Nashville. They're not currently served. That's ridiculous. These are big, fast-growing cities. So this is the kind of vision that we would like to see become a reality. But to do that, again, back to my earlier point, we need the states to make that a reality. And how do they do that? Well, the administrator covered that very well earlier. You've got these this $44 billion grant pot that can now be drawn down against, and the key federal programs being the means to do that. And so you'll see a lot of closed awaiting awards there. I was very encouraged that the administrator said it's not a one-off exercise, that there will be other opportunities, but certainly we want to carry on working with the states to, for example, push forward on the corridor identity program. But in addition to that, we're doing our own bit. It's not all about waiting for the states to act. Let's get on with it now. And this gives you an example of some of the improvements that my colleagues and I at Amtrak are already working on. Things like making the NEC, the Northeastern Corridor, work even better than it currently does. So tackling those bottlenecks, such as the BMP tunnel, the Baltimore and Potomac tunnel, upgrading sections where the trains could actually go a lot faster. You know, the high-speed rail improvement program in New Jersey. Let's get up to 160. Let's tackle these other areas. We put in our own submissions, the bottom bullet point, we put in our own submissions for areas that should be upgraded. And it's not all about the NEC. The good people of Illinois and of Missouri have already benefited from an uplift of 90 miles an hour to 110. So that's the kind of thing that we've been working on. But in the meantime, of course, we're all here to talk about high-speed rail, right? So what do you need? You know the key elements: high travel demand between city pairs. You've got to have that compelling market, those compelling city combos. You've got to have integration. You don't want to just build a high-speed rail line that doesn't connect to the existing systems. Let's get it right and make sure you've got proper integration at either end. There's the obvious things of a straight right of way, limited stops. You know, the actual infrastructure is really clear for true high-speed rail. That's what you need. But I left the last two till last because you're dead in the water. You're wasting your time unless you have these two things. And they are, of course, political support. Got to have that. And you've got to have buckets of cash. And the two come hand in hand. So there's many people out there, and I've already encountered it, right, who's saying, yeah, will never happen, won't happen in the US. There's lots of skeptics out there. One of the things I'd like to do in my job is defy skeptics, right? And so that's one of the things that we aim to do it. And might you have confidence that it can be done? Because the rest of the world's already been doing it. There were skeptics out there in France when the first TGV line went in from Paris to Lyon. People said, okay, fair enough, but that's a one-off. It's not going to happen. Now look at what's happening across Europe and across Asia. They've already cracked it. They figured it out, how to do it. And similarly, you know, where people said, you know, it is only going to be one or two lines. Well, look at the way that route, mileage map has ramped up. You've gone from 122 miles in 1977 to 12,000 miles now and climbing. And I passionately believe that once Americans have experienced high-speed rail here or abroad, and many of you have, you're obviously advocates of it, but once we've cracked the mold and we've got a true high-speed line going here in the US, everyone will want some. Other city mayors were going, can we have some of that? And so that is why we've got to get this thing underway. So how do we achieve it? Well, we looked at a couple of case studies. There's two classic ways of doing this. The Spanish went out and built a whole brand new, pretty much high-speed rail network. Dedicated lines, it's now 25% of their network, second only to China. And that's very impressive. The German way was more incremental. So there's a lot of incremental development that's happened there, including overlaying high speed onto existing lines, upgrading the existing line to true high speed capability. So the good news here is you don't have to wait 10 to 12 years to get a new line built, or maybe less, or ideally less. There are lots of things that you can do in the meantime. And that's definitely the way we're progressing and addressing this in Amtrak. We should be building the market for high-speed rail, and that is about getting all those four pieces on that jigsaw right. So yes, we want high-speed dedicated routes, but we're not focused solely on that. There's lots that can be done in the meantime. So a bit of a whirlwind tour of what we're up to at Amtrak. Stephen Gardner, the chairman, Tony Kosher, brought in a specific role of SVP high-speed rail precisely because we're deadly serious about this. We want to work with you. And I'll end just by quoting the Secretary of Transportation, no less, Pete Buttigieg, said, "Why shouldn't Americans have the best rail in the world?" Well, he thinks that. So do I. Let's get on with it. Thank you very much.